All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much for joining our session with Wahid Invest. I'm excited to introduce and welcome Saad Zariff, who is the Vice President of North America. My name is Muhi Khwaja. I'm with American Muslim Community Foundation. And we wanted to provide this like fireside chat type of vibe for our clients and people who are interested in learning more about donor advised funds. But I wanted to pass it off to Saad to share a little bit more about Wahid Invest and the work that they're doing and how it relates to the potential to really help you set up your charitable giving as well. So welcome, Saad. You're still on mute. It happens to us all.
Happens to all of us. I actually thought I was unmuted for a second. Hey, Assalamualaikum, everyone. Pleasure, Muhi, again, doing something with you. It's always fun to collaborate with you as well. And I know we're doing this during midday, so let's see how many people are able to join in. Very briefly, yes. So I've been part of Wahid Invest for about 3.5 years since we first started the global platform for Muslims to be able to invest in an ethical, faith-based way. To date, we have over 13,700 active clients in the US. An average client over a 3-year period has made anywhere from 30 to 34% return as well in a passive investment strategy. So that's something we're quite, proud of to offer. Personally, my experience has been in the industry for almost 16 years now. I started in accounting, moved into private equity, then worked in private wealth management, then trading in New York as well when I first moved to America about 13 years ago, and been for the last 7 years working primarily within the more ethical faith-based investment space. What I do want to cover are two main things. I feel like COVID is something that's been on everyone's mind. Everyone's been talking about it, even though now it's part of the acceptance of our society now. And second, the US elections. How does that impact markets? How does that impact investments? And beyond that, how should you actually think about making sure that you have a DAF, a donor advised fund, a charitable lead trust set up for now and for the akhirah, as people speak and think about. The one thing that we've actually learned in recent months is that when COVID started, it created this fear of the unexpected behavior from the market and more so from people themselves. I don't know what's going to happen. I think I should just sit in cash. It makes us reactionary. What we actually saw, and I think I was having a little bit of trouble doing screen share, so I'll just share the information verbally as such, is to recognize that when it started between the Jan and February mark, when the COVID fear started to begin and people were uncertain about what was going to happen in the market, how this pandemic is going to affect our lifestyle, the market overall dropped by about 34%. And when we say that, for those who may do not understand what that means is, you're basically looking at a drop in the market from its high to how low did it go. Things like S&P 500, the top 500 companies traded on the stock market. It's an index that we use to track how the market overall is doing. So that dropped between, I would say, early Feb to mid-March by 34%. However, from mid-March up until I will say October of this year, the market gained about 57% return. 57% it went up. So if you were someone who was reactionary, you pulled out your money the moment you saw a decline, and then you missed that rally of the market, you missed out on potential returns that you could have collected in your portfolio as well. And that works in many ways. When you set up a donor advised fund, your intention is that I want a portion of this money, A, to go to a charity of my choosing, B, I want it to be invested so it grows over time, so more is given to the charity that I've selected over a specified period of time. So now imagine if you had stayed invested and you have another 40, 50% in that portfolio, and a portion of that you have allocated to a charity of your choosing, you're giving them more. You're getting a tax break on that account as well, which is what DAF do, and I know you know more about it, so I'm pretty sure you will cover that. And also you are doing that particular good deed that you want to for now and for later. A lot of times people tend to forget that appreciated stocks can be a great way to get a tax break by donating them to charities as well, of your choosing. So those are two really key important elements to understand, is that what we have realized is that COVID has become a norm. So COVID does not correlate to the stock market volatility anymore. It's just an acceptance. Even if we go into another lockdown in the coming months, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, because now we know what to expect from it. That's the biggest thing. The US elections, even right now, I was looking at CNN a couple of minutes before we went live, is we're still waiting for the end result to come out. But what's happening with the markets right now? In the last 2 days, we've seen a massive rally happen. That literally just means that the expectation is that whichever the new government comes in is not going to change any of the rules and guidelines established by the previous one, whether we repeat the same government or not. So that is where the assumption for most people goes wrong when they say, oh, elections are coming, I don't know what to do, maybe I'll just sit on the sidelines and watch. Elections happen every 4 years. If you look at a pattern and a trend, usually between 6 to 8, maybe maximum 12 months is where you see what's called a drawdown in the market during elections, if it happens to be so. Usually, very rarely, that is the case. So what we have learned so far when it comes to understanding the psychology of investing is always ask yourself, what are my goals? Why am I investing? And if you have that in mind alone, you should do just fine. And finally, your emotions. Something I'm a big proponent of is don't let your emotions hold the best of you, because that is when you become a reactionary investor rather than a savvy investor who's saying, hey, I've got a core and strategy approach. My core is I'm going to invest in a portfolio that has index funds in it that will work for me over the long run. And I'm going to keep my emotions out of it. This money is going to work over the next 5, 8, 10, 15 years for me. And your satellite strategy is, if you have time where you do your own analysis, you pick and choose the stocks you want to, you're investing them. That's your short-term goals. You will have a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, 12-month goal that you're investing it based off that, completely different. So being able to dissect that understanding is really extremely important for people that a lot of time folks don't. At least in my career, I've spoken with a ton of people that make that classic mistake of the moment you experience a bit of volatility in the market, you completely freak out. And same thing goes for understanding the value of why you would set up a donor advised fund, is that you are not being reactionary with that money in any way. That money has been given away because over a period of time, you want either all of it or a portion of it to be allocated to a charity of your choosing while you're alive and afterwards as well. That is the beauty of it. We work closely with American Muslim Fund, our own ETF, which, by the way, talking about performance, Halal is the ticker symbol, HLAL, has given a 22% return since last August. That's when it was launched. This includes the COVID crisis that we've gone through, the COVID downturn in the market. In spite of that, we've given a 22% return net of fee to clients in a year. And that's a passive strategy. You can have a goal to achieve 80% or 100% of a dollar value that you want to invest over a course of a year. As a core approach, that's achieved a part of your goals. The rest is however you want to do that. So diversification is always key. You don't always want to be invested just in stocks alone. I'm a big proponent of index funds, not just because I'm biased, but because I can see that they're far more successful in the long run versus actively managed funds, whether they're mutual funds or ETF for that matter. A, because of the fee, they're more expensive. And then secondly, you're pretty much just tracking an index. Whatever the index is doing is what you're going to get. There's no magic in it. That's the best part of it. So having a diversified portfolio with funds helps you, not just stocks, but whether it's bonds. We use sukuks, which are Islamic bonds, because obviously we're trying to avoid interest. And their job is to literally just park your assets, not to give you a return, but to protect your assets during volatile times, which is never guaranteed, but that's what they do. And then sometimes commodities like gold, having it in a portfolio is great as well, as a choice. So these are the things that Wahid we offer. We have been for 3 years, and starting from 500 clients to 13,700. Assets are reaching close to almost 100 mil now overall. So we're really excited about that. It's something I don't share often, but with you, I am about the AUM. A lot of time people ask. I did a webinar 2 nights ago and someone asked about it. And I was like, we can't really share that information. So it's on our ADV on the website. But through our fund and the Robo platform, we're doing pretty great. We're looking to collaborate with you guys more in the future. And we're looking to introduce a bunch of new products as well that we think will be beneficial. I just want to keep it to this level because I'm a firm believer of doing more Q&A at the end if people will have, or if you have any questions that we can address based off this. But this in a gist, I hope, kind of covers some of the thoughts that more often than less people have.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really exciting to see the growth that you've had in a short period of time. And I know a lot of us are watching your performance and really applaud the diversification and strategy that you've been able to implement. So it's exciting to see that you are continuing to grow and have a team that is working all across the country to really produce more results for your client base. I think one of the main things that we appreciate is having that diversification and working with our client base. So I'll jump into a little bit about American Muslim Community Foundation, and we'll answer questions for you at the end. So I wanted to talk more specifically about donor advised funds. We'll talk about the CARES Act of 2020 and how that affects charitable giving. We'll talk about the benefits of donating appreciated assets. So those are all things that will fall in line with what you are learning about and how to make the most of that as well. So can I get a thumbs up if you can see the screen? Awesome, perfect. All right, we just walked through Wahed Invest update. Thank you, Saad, for that. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Community Foundation, it is a publicly supported nonprofit organization, and it's governed by a board which serves its donors and the nonprofit sector overall, and the community. So our definition of community is the American Muslim community. So across the country, serving Muslims and the organizations that they want to support. So, we've supported everything from mainstream institutions like universities and hospitals and food banks to your local mosque and school and civil rights advocacy organizations. And we've been able to do that through the support of the community. So across the country, there are over 700 community foundations. A lot of them are focused on a region. A lot of them are focused on a specific community, or they may be focused on a specific cause. But when American Muslim Community Foundation started, we wanted to help serve the entire Muslim community across the country. So we are the first and only for the Muslim community by the Muslim community. And this is my cat Ninja, who loves to attend all of these sessions. So he will periodically jump in the screen. So our vision is to lead sacred, sustainable, and strategic Muslim philanthropy for today and future generations. We want to make sure that you have a philanthropic plan, that you have the ability to pass on some of these assets and donor advised funds to your children to make decisions on where they want to support different causes. And we want to be leading the thought leadership of Muslim philanthropy in the United States as well. And we do this by cultivating donor giving and diversifying funding to advance charitable causes. Our core values are to be sacred, strategic, sustainable, collaborative, diverse, inclusive, and doing all of that with integrity. And we love partnering with Wahed on these types of initiatives because it allows us to be more strategic, be more sustainable, be more collaborative all around. So we have a diverse team all across the country. We have 7 board members. We have a large advisory committee who help us on our investment strategy, who help us in marketing and in legal setup. And then we have a small and mighty team. I'm the full-time staff. I'm the director of development and philanthropy. I manage the relationships with the nonprofits we support, with the families who give through us, and we have some part-time staff as well. So this is a video. I'm going to share this presentation with you as well, so you can watch through the videos on your own time and learn a little bit more about our board president, Safa Ibrahim. And here's a little timeline of kind of what we've been able to do in a short period of time. So we started in 2016. We opened up our first donor advised funds in 2017. We introduced endowment services over the years and giving circles and also fiscal sponsorship. So I'll talk a little bit more in depth in what those services are. But since 2017, we've been able to give over $3 million to charities. And this has all been directed from the families that we work with. So a little bit more in depth on what donor advised funds are. If you think of it like a charitable savings account, where whatever money you put into it, you will get an immediate tax benefit and receive the deduction when you make any gifts into your donor advised fund. So you get one receipt from AMCF, and then you'll be able to direct, I want to invest funds or I want to give funds to a nonprofit, and then we will handle those investments and distributions for you. And I'll get more into specifics on how all of that works. The giving circles are where groups of family or friends come together and decide to give to one collective pot and then distribute from there. So if you and a group of friends say you want to support your local food bank, instead of them receiving 10 different transactions and tracking that it was from your collective group, you can all make those transactions to AMCF, and then we will make that one transaction to the charity of your choice on your behalf. So it helps create more awareness. You get to learn about different causes that maybe some of your friends are supporting that you don't know about. And it allows us to work with you more strategically to create a stronger collective impact. So the endowments are for nonprofit organizations. If you have some of your favorite charities and you want them to be more sustainable and strategic, you can set up an endowment where you can even gift your appreciated assets and say, I want these proceeds to go to the nonprofit organization, but it's a large sum and I don't want it to be all spent on operations. I want it to set up over time and grow and be invested. And then the returns of that investment be given to the charity of your choice. So you can help set up an endowment at your favorite nonprofits with AMCF. And the fiscal sponsorship is for smaller projects. If they don't have their 501c3, we can be their fiscal sponsor, help them apply to grants, help them receive tax-deductible donations from their supporters. So those are other services that we provide. We have a podcast. We chat with nonprofit leaders. We chat with people who have been nominated for our Muslim Philanthropy Awards. We talk with our board members and donors about why they support and give you a better understanding of the different challenges in the nonprofit community. So I like to compare it to like how I built this with Guy Raz. I have a long way to go in my hosting skills, but he's an inspiration and talks to Fortune 500 company leaders about how they became successful. So I want to do the same thing for the nonprofit community and share the stories of the great work that are being done. We just wrapped up a social impact accelerator where we had over 60 participants per webinar, and they learned about 8 different topics on how to start a nonprofit or build a board, do a strategic plan, marketing, and so many other key skills that our nonprofits need. So we continue to do consulting, we continue to do webinars to build capacity and leadership development at the nonprofits that our families support. The last two things, we also have a professional development fund, because a lot of the time small nonprofits, sure, they can hire staff, but they don't have additional resources to invest in their staff leadership. So if you wanted to set up a scholarship fund for your favorite nonprofit staff to take trainings and learn and continue to develop their leadership team, you can do that through AMCF. And lastly, we have what we call the Muslim philanthropic values. We work with the Barca culture cards from Muslim Productive Company, and we have an exercise where you can look at what are the values, the Islamic values that you hold that inspire your charitable giving. So this is a good exercise for giving circles and families who open up donor advised funds to learn more about that. So if you think about how you donate today, maybe you are giving to 10 different charities. You don't necessarily get updates from them. Come tax season, you have to follow up with each of them individually. And it's a pain to work through getting all of that information to submit your taxes. So there's so many different ways to give. Again, you can give appreciated assets, you can write a check, you can give cash, you can do a credit card donation, but then you're looking through different ways to give. And if you were attending events in the past or now virtual fundraisers, sometimes they're uncomfortable, they're long, they're drawn out, they're not effective. And the charities don't necessarily build a relationship, and it's very transactional. So by having a donor advised fund, we can shift some of that culture and create more positive experiences around fundraising and donating. So there's actually a study done by the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding on what motivates donors in the Muslim community. And there's also other research done just on the general American community on what motivates donor giving. So if you're supporting a cause, it's more likely that you believe in their mission and you want to see that mission succeed. And you have a desire to make a difference. And also you get personal satisfaction. When you help and give other people, there's an intrinsic reward for you as well. You may be influenced by your family and your upbringing to give to other causes and share what you have. You're often influenced by personal stories. You maybe heard somebody who went and visited orphanage, or somebody who built a water well in a developing country, and you were inspired by that and you want to continue to help. Or you see the impact and local mentorship that a certain nonprofit organization provides to people to break the cycle of poverty through education. There's so many different inspiring stories of nonprofit organizations and the work that they do. And when you hear those personal stories, you're inclined to support them. And we're motivated by our faith. We want to support because we believe in the fact that we will be rewarded with good deeds, and also because it is the right thing to do. And often you're influenced by your social network as well. And lastly, the tax benefits as well. So as Saad was talking about, this year has been challenging for a lot of people, but also the stock market has done really well. So if you are in that category of somebody who either has cash reserves or has appreciated assets from this year, there are a lot of benefits in opening a donor advised fund. Some of the reasons why people don't give is because we're not asked. That's the number one reason. So that's why we're always proactive in sharing different causes with the families that we work with. We have over 500 nonprofit charities in our directory that you can learn more about intimately. And we can help you build relationships with those nonprofits as your philanthropic advisor. Sometimes when people don't give, it's because they stop thinking that their gift matters. But as a nonprofit fundraiser over the last 12 years, I can tell you that every gift makes a difference. And that's something that whether you have $5 to give or $500,000 to give, that should be equally valued. And sometimes, a lot of the times, you may not be familiar with an organization. There isn't as much transparency in their financial transactions, or you just don't know an organization. So there's a lack of trust. And we can help through that because we vet the charities that we work with and do more than just review their IRS determination letter to fund them. So this is the study that I was talking about through the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. And ISPU came up with these stats in comparison of the Muslim community to the general public. So the number one motivating factor for Muslims was that the feeling that those with more should help those with less. It comes to the blessings that we have, that it is a trust from God that we have these resources, and we need to be mindful of how we are sharing them as well. Of course, religious obligation and duty is a heavy influence on the giving. And what's interesting through this study that ISPU did is it showcases that Muslims are just as likely to give to causes outside of our faith community as we are to causes within our faith community as well. So that's why I really like the idea of families working with American Muslim Community Foundation, because you as an individual, if you give to a cause and you're Muslim, and let's say you're supporting your alma mater, or you're supporting a domestic violence shelter, or you're supporting a food bank in your local community, if they get a check from you or a credit card transaction, they may not see that it's coming from a Muslim. But if you give through AMCF, it's a clear indicator that the Muslim community cares about those community causes. So it's a matter of partnering with AMCF to do your charitable giving so that Muslim philanthropy can have a larger impact. We're reminded throughout the Quran, throughout Hadith, throughout our teachings that we should be steadfast in prayer and practice regular charity. So over 100 times in the Quran and hundreds of hadith, we're reminded through the importance of zakat, through the importance of sadaqa. And we know that there's a long, rich history of Islam and endowments and supporting social services and basic needs in the community. So these are things that we should reflect on and be prideful of in continuing this long-standing tradition. Some quick stats on who the American Muslim community is. This is from Pew Research Group, and the Muslim community is 34% South Asian, 26% Arab, 25% Black, 9% white and mixed, and a growing percentage of Hispanic community. So, you know, this information that we have shows that there's no one majority, that we are diverse, and we want to represent all of the charitable giving that is influenced by the beautiful cultures that we come from, and showcase that as Muslim philanthropy overall. So, you know, we're in election season right now. There's over 750,000 registered Muslim voters, closer to 1 million probably. And there's over 2,000 mosques in America. There are over 300 part-time and full-time schools with 40,000 students. There are more than 5,500 registered organizations classified as Islamic. So if you think of the Muslim American institutions in this country, it takes a lot of support from the general community to support that. But I would also argue that the wealth is in the Muslim community to support these causes as well, as Dinar Standard did a study saying that there's $124 billion of disposable income in the American Muslim community. We know that, again, from Pew Research, there's over 3.75 million Muslims in America, and largely significant population of Muslims across the country in states like Indiana and South Dakota and North Dakota, places that you necessarily wouldn't think of that have a large Muslim population, but there is a significant population widespread across the country. So Giving USA is a report done by Indiana University, and they showed that in 2019, Americans gave $450 billion. This came from individuals, from corporations, through people leaving their wills and bequests, and through foundations as well. So a large majority of that goes to support religious causes. About $128 billion goes to support religion. Then comes education at $64 billion, and human services at $56 billion. So you can see that there's a widespread variety of causes that Americans are passionate about. And what we're hoping to do is showcase the contributions from Muslims and also helping nonprofits be more represented when it comes to corporate giving, when it comes to foundation giving. So we're building relationships across the country to showcase and have corporations and foundations give to Muslim-led charities. So that's something that AMCF is actively working on. Again, another example of our teachings showcasing, it says, every joint of a person must perform a charity each day that the sun rises. So again, you know, even a smile is charity is another common hadith that we hear. So these are all reminders that we should be giving from our assets, that we should be giving from our wealth, that we should be giving from our time, talents, treasures back into the community as well. So donor advised funds. This is what I want to focus on the conversation today. Again, it's like a giving vehicle for you and your family. It provides an immediate tax benefit when you put assets or cash into it, and you get the deduction the moment you make that gift. So, you know, if you're thinking about 2020, you maybe talk to your financial planner, your CPA, you're looking at your cash reserves and your appreciated assets, and you want to see how can you make smart and strategic decisions to either lower your income bracket or take advantage of distributing charity for the rest of your life. So again, you can donate real estate, you can donate stocks, assets, cash, and you get the deduction for those gifts in 2020. but then you can distribute it the rest of your life. So we use religiously ethical and socially responsible investment opportunities like Wahid Invest. So if you're a client of Wahid, you can easily keep your assets invested in Wahid, but also get your deduction through AMCF when you open up a donor advised fund. You still get to select the nonprofits that you want to support, and AMCF will make those distributions for you on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis, however you want to distribute your zakat, your sadaqa, your charitable giving. So the nonprofit also receives updates. We'll notify them if it was for a specific project, if it was considered zakat funds. And you also get a report showcasing what your balance is, what you've contributed, who's received it. And then we would work with Wahid to kind of showcase quarterly updates on what your institutional balance is as well. So the benefits of a donor advised fund is, again, you get to consolidate all of your giving. You get one tax receipt when it comes time to do your taxes. You get to set aside the money now and donate it later. You can grow your balance tax-free through investing for future charitable giving growth. AMCF has an understanding and a pulse on the Muslim community, on the general nonprofit community, and we can help you research different causes to support. If you're interested in food insecurity in your zip code and you want to know which charities are doing work, we'll help you find the best nonprofits to support. Again, we keep track of all of your zakat and sadaqa in one place. We vet the charities for you in our nonprofit directory. You can name your DAF after a loved one. You can do sadaqa jariyah gift to other people, for other people on behalf of loved ones, and you get to pass the balance from your donor advised fund onto your family so that they can then make decisions on where those funds will go to other nonprofit organizations. Now, here's where we talk specifically of why it's important to donate appreciated assets. You know that if you cash out appreciated assets, you are going to be penalized with a capital gains tax. If you gift these appreciated assets to a nonprofit organization, you're going to get the current market value of those of that gift as a deduction. And in addition to that, you will avoid the capital gains tax. So it's really advantageous for you to be giving your appreciated assets if you have them. And you get to take, and this allows you to give more to the nonprofits that you care about. So you reduce your future capital gains by purchasing, you can repurchase current market value of stock if you had cash to do so. And one of the specific things that we'll touch on is giving by cash in 2020 because of the CARES Act and the benefits to giving cash this year. So here's just an analysis of like a user who maybe gives $500 to 10 different causes. You know, they also have appreciated stock, so they donate, make 2 transactions from their brokerage to identify other charities. So they've had to make 12 different transactions to 12 different charities. And they would, if their corporate giving allows them to make matching requests, then they have to submit 12 additional matching requests. And then again, they're struggling to get their taxes, their receipts during tax time. And sometimes the organizations don't follow up with them. But let's consider the alternative. They have a donor advised fund. They make 1 contribution, maybe 2, some cash, some stock, and it's seamless. Then they get to avoid the capital gains tax. They can invest this balance for future growth and then distribute it to the charities when they're ready to. And they get 1 tax receipt. And AMCF plays a pivotal role as a philanthropic advisor for the family and then donates on your behalf. So both you and the organization get reports with details of the gift amounts, of zakat and sadaqa, of project descriptions, so that you're always kept aware of where your charitable giving progress is year over year or over your lifetime. So the minimums to open up a donor advised fund is only $2,500. And we kept it this low because that Giving USA report shares that the average American household gives $3,000 a year. Now, I know many of you have the capacity to give well beyond that. And we want you to take advantage, after talking to your financial advisors, of what is the right amount of money for you to donate in 2020 to receive the most benefits and the most deductions for you to carry over the next 5 years as well. So if you're interested, you can even text DAF to 71441 to get started, or visit the URL to find out more. So here's the fee structure. It's an annual fee of 0.65% for the first $500,000, or $125 a year, whichever is greater. And then you see the more money that you give, the lower the administrative fee becomes as well. We're going to provide this presentation to you so you have all this information. We need to seek sustenance through our charitable giving. This is what we're taught in the Hadith. And we also, like I said, research and vet the nonprofits for you. And I thought I had, it's funny, I thought I had a slide on the CARES Act, but I'll talk about that now, and we'll bring it back to more of the conversation. So what I wanted to mention about the CARES Act is that in 2020, when the CARES Act passed, it allowed for individuals to now give 100% of their adjusted gross income as cash contributions. So if you have cash reserves, this is a perfect time for you to take advantage of giving more than you usually would. And the benefit of doing that is, you're pretty much giving for the next 5 years of your life. You get the deduction now, but then you can distribute those funds over the next 5 years, 10 years, the rest of your life. And in years past, it was only up to 60% of adjusted gross income for individuals would be able to be deducted. But the CARES Act specifically said for individuals, you can give up to 100% of your AGI. Now, many of you likely also have a business. So if you have a business, for corporate giving, you can now deduct up to 25% of adjusted gross income, whereas in the past years, it was only 10%. So again, we want you to talk to your financial advisors, your CPA over the next few weeks. And if you're interested in opening up a donor advised fund, I'm here to help you with that. So Saad, I want to bring it back to you. If you have any additional thoughts that you'd like to share, and then we can open it up to Q&A.
No, I think it'd be great to open up so we can start, but I think you covered some great stuff. The CARES Act, the only thing I'll say about the CARES Act is, for some people, it's actually misunderstood the high value that it offers. You definitely brought that to light. And the one other thing I'll actually mention to that we've seen it in our experience in recent months happens, that some people, depending on their situation, will say, oh, I'm actually thinking of taking money out of my IRA to use it for personal use and distinguish it as CARES Act service. That is not, it's not as cookie cutter as that sounds like. You will, when you file your taxes, you will have to justify why you took that money out,
right,
were you under hardship and duress due to COVID or not, and only then you're able to avoid those penalties and taxes on it. Or you don't even avoid taxes, you pay them over a period of 3 years. So to what Muhi is saying, that the concept of using CARES Act, again, is either in dire situation or taking advantage of these benefits through donor advised funds and others, that you can do that, especially with your modified AGI as well. So think of it more from that point of view. And when it comes to retirement accounts, don't touch them. They're meant for you to use them at the age of retirement, when you're 59 and a half and older, not now. Hence, diversifying your income, your investments, your personal goals is the key, rather than keeping it all in one basket.
Yeah, I don't know everybody's age. So I will say if you have family that is 70 and a half or older, they can do what's called a required minimum distribution, and they can send that to charity. So if you're of the age of 70 and a half or older, you can give up to $100,000 from your IRA accounts. And like Saad was saying, if you're 59 and a half to 70 and a half, you can consider it, but a best practice is to keep it there. And obviously your financial advisor would have more clarity on how to do that. So I'd love to open it up to Q&A. Feel free to come on video, come off mute, ask your question, or type it into the chat.
Yeah, and we noticed a couple of people arrived a little bit late. So if you feel like you missed out on something, I did a brief intro about Wahid, what we do, our investments, and so on. And it's primarily for Muhi to educate people about the values and benefits of DAFs and so on. Seems like we did a really fantastic job. No one has any questions at all. I'm surprised that people are not concerned, because lately we've been getting a lot of questions about market volatility as well, especially during the pandemic and the elections, or even, hey, what are the smarter ways for me to get a better tax break perhaps next year? That's what donor advice funds are for there. According to Muhi, like imagine if you can come up with a dollar amount that you're willing to give. We have clients that have contributed up to $100,000 or more towards a DAF over a period of 5 years. For this 5 years tax break they get in the year they've set up the DAF. That's the value from a monetary standpoint you're getting. And then from a personal, emotional, and faith-based value, you're supporting the charity of your choice as well. Oh, there seems to be something that popped up there. Oh, that's you sending out the, yeah, fantastic. The link is there. Is how you should look at it. And I think a lot of times people can have the choice whether you can just use cash value to be in a DAF, to be spread out to charities of your choosing, or the smarter way you want to invest it. You want that money to grow over time, so there's more to give as well. And that's where firms like ours come into play, where we can guide you in the right direction. We have our own fund, which is publicly traded. HLAL is the ticker symbol. You can select that through American Muslim Fund as well and say, hey, I want to invest in this. It gives a quarterly dividend. That will grow over time. The appreciation grows. For those that joined in late, we launched this ETF last year in August, and we were a Muslim-owned, Muslim-run company that rang the bell on NASDAQ, the opening bell as well in New York, which was pretty exciting at the time. It still is when I think about it. And for the year, it has given a 22% return. So that 22% over, say, $100,000 sitting still is extra money that can go to a charity of your choosing through American Muslim Fund as well. So it's all about the power of compound growth. That's a lot of times misunderstood by people. So keeping that in mind, keeping your personal goals for investments in mind. Why are you investing? The purpose you're investing. Why should you set up a DAF? The purpose of it is what will bring value over the long run.
So I'd love to have people chime in the chat box. What are some of your favorite charities that you support? Wonderful. OBAT Helpers. Islamic Scholarship Fund, another great one. And surprisingly enough, these are two nonprofits that are being recognized as outstanding grant maker for ISF and outstanding nonprofit for OBAT Helpers for American Muslim Community Foundation's annual symposium that's going to be taking place on November 14th. Our special guest speaker is Hassan Minaj. So I highly recommend you taking a look at our event that's upcoming, and I'll share that information in the chat group as well. Any other nonprofits that people like supporting?
Local nonprofit hospitals. Yeah, that's a great suggestion, actually.
Yeah.
That should definitely be a part of it, especially now we've realized the value of doctors and nurses more than ever. So supporting your local nonprofit hospitals is also a huge deal for sure.
And what's really critical is showcasing there's so many free clinics that are Muslim led, right? And they're doing great work servicing majority non-Muslim clients. If you think of Ummah Clinic in LA or Huda Clinic in Detroit, or the hundreds across the country. So it's really phenomenal to see the contributions of the Muslim community to the general public as well.
Yeah. And while people are doing that, the one thing I want to add is, having worked both in the conventional non-Muslim wealth management space and working with Muslims or people of faith as well, I've noticed the one thing we definitely do tend not to focus much on is how to create a bigger bucket of charitable giving. The Jewish Communal Fund in New York has over $3 billion. It's insane. Like, in their community in the tri-state area, if there's a Jewish business or a Jewish nonprofit, they don't even need to worry about fundraising. They say, don't worry about fundraising. We've got the money to give you for whatever purpose you want. We've got enough people donating and giving us to build that. And that's something when Wahid was created, we wanted to do that. Aside from providing investment products and solutions, is to how to educate people to build a bigger, robust model of charitable giving that can support various charities across the country. And I think what you guys have created is something that can be the stepping stone for that purpose as well.
Definitely. And I'm sending an image in the chat box as well, if you want to open that. That has more information on our annual symposium, all the list of the nominees, and how you can find more information. So, you know, this is what I geek out about every day. I'm sure Saad geeks out about the investments every day. So I could talk for, you know, so long about this, but we really want to hear from you who are on the call, you know, why you were interested in learning more and how we can be of service to you.
Now, if you ask a question about which stock to buy today, we can't answer that.
So I see Zara, Sayed, Muhammad, Kilana. Any questions you want to ask? So she's saying, I'm coming from the perspective of someone supporting nonprofits in their fundraising and development efforts. Got it. So this is informative for you to share with your donors. And, you know, if you're working at a specific nonprofit organization, something that you can do is host like a stewardship webinar with your donors and talk to them about the advantages of donor advised funds and giving through their own appreciated assets to support the organization. And, you know, I worked at small nonprofits where we didn't have a brokerage account. And we had to open up a brokerage account, and it took some time to fill out the paperwork and things like that. So being able to partner with an institution like AMCF, where they have brokerage accounts at all the main firms, allows you to work with your donors to give to AMCF and then contribute to your charitable organization. And she's also asking, I'm specifically wondering how to best communicate the benefits of the CARES Act as we approach end of year fundraising. I will have some more information on that. We created some graphics and resources earlier this year when the CARES Act was passed. And I believe this is let me check on the accurate URL, and there's some information on our website that is specific to resources for fundraising during COVID-19. So if you scroll down on this website I'm about to share, there's a graphic that's closer to the bottom of the page that says Understanding the CARES Act. And it talks about the CARES Act expands the charitable contributions. And it's exactly what we talked about here. It's the allowance for anybody who, even if they don't itemize, they can make a $300 cash contribution. And it will be allowance of partial above the line deduction for charitable contributions. And then more specifically, we talked about corporations being able to give 25% of their adjusted gross income, and individuals being able to give 100% of their adjusted gross income. So this, again, is only specific to cash contributions, but we talked through the presentation about the benefits of donating appreciated assets. So when you're talking about year-end fundraising to your nonprofits, you should include information on both of those opportunities for your donors.
The only one thing I'll add, I think Muhi answered that for you really well, Lona, but always use a professional to do a bit of educational workshop as well. And why the one thing I started when I joined was that I realized that in our communities, we know how to save money and earn money, but investing or financial literacy is lacking. The average sort of number of sort of average population in US that knows about financial literacy is close to about 62% of like 300 million plus people. So adding on financial literacy as a knowledge base can benefit tremendously. That's something we do quite a lot, where we've partnered up with nonprofits during their fundraising and do a short snippet about the importance of financial literacy, importance of investing, importance of donor advised funds, and we kind of direct them towards American Muslim Fund and why they should be using it as well. So if you feel like that it's kind of more tricky to explain things like the CARES Act or why it should be learned and educated about, either of us, whether it's Muhi or myself, will be happy to kind of partake in those sort of fundraisers for you as well and provide that educational content, because coming from a professional can be slightly more different than someone else educating people on it. So it's just something to be mindful about.
And there's such a large... Yes, please, Zara. So Zara, your audio is a little distorted and hard to hear.
I'm walking, so I'll just sit for a minute. Can you hear me better now?
A little bit better, yeah.
Okay. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity to hear from within the Muslim community on prioritizing charitable giving. One of the challenges that we have as a very modestly staffed and funded center is identifying similarly missioned organizations and with which we can partner. And so one question that readily comes to mind when you have modest resources is individual versus business accounts. And is there the option for one over the other? And is it always a 5-year commitment with the donor advice fund? We have a very modest individual Whitehead account, which is in my name. But most of the nonprofit's assets are in the nonprofit's EIN. So from an operating standpoint, we operate minimalist, but just thought to clarify the distinction with our Whitehead account as an individual account, and then what the Islamic or the Muslim Fund offers through a donor advisor account.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and thank you for asking that, Zara. We work with both nonprofits and individuals, right? So if a nonprofit comes to us, we would help them set up an endowment where you could, instead of having the assets in your name at Wahed, they would be in your nonprofit's name through AMCF, right? And then for individuals to contribute through donor advised funds, they can still donate appreciated assets and carry over that over 5 years. But there's not necessarily a limitation on it only benefiting them 5 years, because you can still hold on to those assets. You can reinvest them. You can donate them to charities right away if you wanted to. So there's a lot of flexibility with donor advised funds for donors who want to contribute to any nonprofit. And what I'll say in addition to that as well is, we're talking about how nonprofits can take advantage of these types of services. Another great opportunity to introduce your donors to is estate planning. Do they have a will set up? Do they have a trust? And giving through a will is a fantastic opportunity. We just did a presentation on this yesterday, and Muslims can leave up to 1/3 of their wealth to charity. Then the other 2/3 is through Islamic inheritance law, but you can leave that 33% to a donor advised fund, and then we can distribute it from there for you. You can name specific charities in your will, and you can even say, I want those funds to go to a trust, but then the trust is partnered with a donor advised fund. So there's a lot of creative ways that your nonprofit organization can benefit from estate planning and wills. So I would highly recommend trying to find an estate planner in your community to educate your donors and your organization on those benefits.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Great. Sayed, any questions that you have? Well, I mean, if that seems to be it. So he says, what is your outlook for gold in 2021 to 2022?
We are definitely analyzing it. We still believe that gold has always been a good longer term play rather than short term. I think based on the way the economic environment has been, gold has done well, even though recently it has gone through a few bounces. It's all based on US dollar as well. Like, you know, the correlation to that, or to oil for that matter. Oil price goes down, gold goes up. We still think gold is a good buffer to have in any investment, but not as a co-investment. Using it in a form of a fund is better. Some people believe using physical gold, like holding it for longer term so that it appreciates in value. 15 years ago, gold was at $800 an ounce. Now it's way, way above that. So the short-term outlook could still be volatile for gold, but the long-term can actually be quite positive, because we still believe as a valuable commodity, it's still beneficial to keep hold of it, but over a longer term, basically. Within this year, we can see some volatility in gold, quite possibly. And we actually used in one of our portfolios a gold ETF, GLDM. Those are the ticker symbols. If anyone ever wants to independently invest in a gold fund without the cost of physical gold holding, like some funds have that, GLDM is not a bad one to have at all. It's got decent performance, low management fee on it as well. I think it's like 0.18%, which could be kind of worth considering. I know a lot of people are comparing gold to cryptocurrencies as well, or Bitcoin for that matter sometimes. That's like apples to oranges comparison in that sense. But that's what we see. We still see gold as a good long-term play, not just within a short term to benefit from.
And just as many people think of their IRA accounts or investment accounts as long-term, right? We want people to think about their charitable giving long-term as well. So not like, obviously you calculate your zakat every year, you distribute your zakat and sadaqa every year, but what is your philanthropic legacy that you want to leave behind? What are the causes that mean the most to you? And really utilize the benefits of a donor advised fund, having a philanthropic advisor to talk through those things, looking at the Muslim philanthropic values to see what identifies with your giving strategy. So we want you to look at considering opening up donor advised funds to be more strategic about your charitable giving and make the most of 2020 and the CARES Act and having appreciated assets to transfer those to a donor advised fund where you can still invest them and keep them growing over the years to come.
And again, the one thing I'll add is, even to Sister Zara, who's like, thank you again for putting your trust in Wahid and opening an individual account. The one difference for that is the individual account is in your name. So you're responsible for it. You're responsible for paying capital gains taxes on it. For organizations like American Muslim Fund, you can set up that endowment. You can set up that donor advised fund by the individual donors and still benefit faith-based investments, because American Muslim Fund works with multiple different firms, since they have different brokerage accounts as well. Our ETF can be acquired through them as well into a portfolio for you. I work closely with Muhi on that as well. So it's not like your investments will take a back seat, but it's all about the underlying purpose for which you want to invest that money and what you want to do with that growth as well.
Yeah, and the benefit is, you know, as an organization, if you wanted to open up an organizational account at Wahid, I think the minimum requirement is like
$100 to even start with. However, we're still in the process of introducing corporate accounts, whether it's an S Corp or C Corp. Then the funds have to come from that source as well. I believe by January, we will have them available. If you want to do that, for sure you can.
Yeah, and the benefit of working with AMCF and American Muslim Community Foundation is that you can start at a lower level than that minimum threshold. And since we pool our resources with the other 85 families that we work with, the hundreds of nonprofits that we work with, and then we can collectively have a singular account with Wahid and get the benefit of their expense ratio for having a larger account. And you will be pooled into that with the other assets that are under management at AMCF. So, I want to make sure that we give you an opportunity to ask any other questions. And if there aren't any more, we're more than happy to give you back your time. But you can continue to reach out to myself and Saad as a resource. We would love to partner with your nonprofits. We would love to have your donors open up donor advised funds and give more strategically. So if there's any way in which I can be of benefit to you, please reach out, and we'd love to host you at our annual symposium next weekend as well.
I think you guys should definitely be attending that. It looks pretty exciting. And the one thing I'll finally add from Wahid Invest point of view, yes, we offer these investments that are really sort of beneficial in many ways with diversified portfolios. But there's something I harp about the most is financial literacy, having proper understanding of what you earn, how to spend, how to save, how to give away to charity. That's something we're big on. And we are recently going through a series of webinars that we're hosting for various nonprofits and their donors to understand the importance of financial literacy. So if you yourself, someone you know would be interested in that, we'd be happy to host and plan a customized presentation educational workshop around that as well. We're in the process of working with ICNA and ISNA as well for different chapters to do just that, basically, among few others. So please feel free to reach out to me if you want to discuss that as well.
Fantastic. Well, we'll leave it there. You have our information going forward. And thank you so much for tuning in. This has been a really insightful conversation, and really grateful for your attendance today.
Well, thank you very much for everyone's time. Muhi, great as always being with you on this, and we'll be in touch.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.